Alright, and we're gonna get started here. Nah. Going down to the live chat. Then... Alright, and we're gonna get started here. Nah. Gotta mute myself. Got a 30-second delay. Gonna give a few minutes for people to start filing in. Nobody's here yet. Oh, 3 watching now. And now you get to see me do it in real time this time because I'm only using one monitor. My other monitor is in the garage. I'm in between looking for my own place, so a lot of my stuff is packed up, including half of my computer stuff. Which is why I probably sound different now than I do in a lot of my videos, because I'm actually using a different mic. I'm using a mic that I used in a couple of my videos, but I didn't like the way it clipped off the audio. Welcome, Scarlet Curus. Right. And welcome to Jacob V11. I'll be getting started here in just a few minutes. I'm just posting this to all the Facebook pages. By all, I mean like 5. Team Sunny D. Hate that it's called Team Sunny D. Good group. Good people in it. But it's not in the ours with all my other Ruby groups. So for this stream, I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff that I have on my mind, but I'm going to try keeping it mostly on Ruby lore. The world building aspects, lore aspects, stuff like that. Alright, that should do it. Facebook. Curls. Oh, I totally misread that as curless. I don't know why I added an I in there. It works here? Yep. Alright. So I'm playing Skyrim, and as you can see, I got a Ruby weapon mod turned on. Uh, it's a pretty fun mod. I only like just downloaded it today just to keep this a little bit Ruby focused. But as you can see, it's not the best. Oh, it actually looks better now. When I was playing around this morning, Jean's sword was even more janked up. But as you can see, like, the texture's not all there. So, anyway. To the topic at hand, I think we have a couple people on now. Ruby lore. It's... and I'm gonna try not spoiling my next video, which I recorded the audio for, last night. I recorded the audio for it. But the delivery of exposition in Ruby it leaves a lot to be desired. There's a lot of great stuff in there, but it's handled so poorly. Speaking of handling poorly, I'm kind of trying to be Jean. I got the sword, but for some reason Corsair Wars in this mod does not let you use a shield. But Mirror Tenaster does. But it does some serious damage. Like, that was nuts. Robert Fuller said lore, meaning the stuff that makes it different from ours, correct? Yeah, kinda. That's a little... That's kind of a much simpler way of putting it. Lore is anything culture-wise within a world. Fictional or real. But it's usually like a single culture, and in this case... the culture of Remnant. Let's see, there's a couple different aspects of lore, like, relating it to us. We have like religion, politics, all that jazz that a lot of people don't like talking about on the internet, especially within like fandoms, especially nowadays with how friggin' messed up stuff is. Like, it's stupid what's going on in Charlesville. Celtic Phoenix Productions actually did a really fascinating video on how he would fix the lore in Ruby, and I agree with a lot of his points. But I think saying that it absolutely needs to be fixed is maybe doing it a little bit of a disservice. It's really just the way it's been delivered has been lacking. The actual stuff that's there can still work. Even stuff that seems to have ruined Ruby, such as the Maidens, and this is just a trap, isn't it? Huh. Oh well. Back the other way. Anyway. I'm doing stuff for the companions, by the way, because I don't know, it just seems like something a Huntsman in Remnant would do. I really feel like Jean would be all for the... He would be all for the companions, what they do, monster hunting and stuff like that. Let's start from the top. History. It really feels like they are making Remnant's history up as they go. And it really shows with really with that world of Remnant about the Great War, even though that's one that I actually like. I don't know, it just seems like they built up the Great War to be this massive conflict, but it apparently only lasted 10 years. Like, I don't know, that just doesn't seem long enough. And I'm going to make a lot of references to this, but my fanfiction were beyond. I had the Great War be like thousands of years long. Like, so long to the point where everyone just forgot why they were fighting, and were still fighting until they had to unite against a common foe. And that's another thing that bothers me about the Great War in Ruby proper, is that there is no unifying force. There is no actual reason for the kingdoms to have united. It was pretty much Vale and Vacuo were on a team. Atlas and Mistral were on a team. Or I guess it was Mantle and Mistral on a team. The Vale King pretty much single-handedly kicked everyone's ass, and then... peace! It's just all peace from there. And that, I just don't buy it. And it's important for an audience to buy it. They have to buy what the show is doing, what the show is trying to do. Someone, it's all the way up there. It's been a while since I played Skyrim. This morning was the first time I played Skyrim in like a couple months at least. Our Fuller says, find the tome for transmuting iron. It's a nice way to basically print gold. I never found use for anything like that. It's really easy to break the economy in this game.
You have done well for yourself and for the companions. Skjor was looking for you earlier.
Robert Fuller said, kind of like World War I, supposed to be the war to end all wars, but in hindsight, the fact that we thought that was laughable. Yes, and
No. He just said he needed to talk to
not everyone said that. Woodrow Wilson famously said that if we're not nice to Germany, we'll inevitably fight them again. And he was right. The thing about World War One is that we had never had a war anywhere near that scale before. We had never had so many nations, so many areas, so much of everyone.
There you are.
All over
I did.
and fighting,
Time, it seems
and it was hard to see that escalating even further, which it did. But you know what? World War One might not have been the war to end all wars, but
if he's right,
we have not had a war since World War Two. Since World War Two, that's a fact. Every other war has just been different, like Civil War, excursions, police actions, junk like that. We haven't had a world-spanning war yet. Who knows what's going to happen with North Korea?
there's a fine line between respect and bootlicking, new blood. But I like your spirit. You've decided this will be your trial. Do well, and you'll be counted among the companions. Farkas will be your shield sibling on this. He'll answer any questions you have. Try not to disappoint. Or
I'm also eating vanilla wafer cookies. They're delicious. Used to be one of my favorite snacks as a kid.
I hope you've readied your... So I'm told. Let's see if you impress.
I'll head back home if you need me.
Until next time.
No, I gotta meet him somewhere.
You still need to prove yourself, whelp.
I am your sword and
Caleb Trick said in a fantasy set world like Remnant, I kind of expected the world to rely heavy on religion. Yes and no. I don't know why Miles and Carrie are so, like, pussyfooting around this. It's a fantasy world, it's their fantasy world. I can give it some culture, give it some religion. It doesn't have to be anything like ours, it doesn't have to be an allegory. Which is what Full Metal Alchemist did. Full Metal Alchemist had a bunch of religions, and they were all allegories for real world religious. Like Ishval was Islam. Like no other way to say it. Ishval was Islam. Scarlet Curl said, "I sat in my bed 2 nights ago." Thinking about how Australia could be bombed by North Korea. I could be dead or a refugee in future. That's scary. That is a scary thought. I think things are going to be fine for us in the West, in the Western world. The thing about North Korea is that they're not actually a threat. In fact, every day they become less and less of a threat. You'll probably hear the dogs barking. Kim Jong-un he's going to be the last dictator of North Korea. His days are numbered. More and more every day, America and European and to a lesser extent Australian propaganda are making it into North Korea. Kim Jong-un is becoming less and less liked in this country. The North Koreans are waking up to what the Kim Jongs have done. And that's why Kim Jong-un is picking a fight with Trump, because he knows Trump is easily goated. I mean, you can freaking bait him with a tweet. And he needs that external force. He needs America Kim Jong-un needs America to be this big boogeyman threat to North Korea in order to keep North Korea under his control. Maybe the memes will kill him. Who knows? I forgot to level up. I'm kind of role-playing as Jean, so I'm not, like, putting anything into magic. Except maybe, like, restoration. Yeah, but enough about, current events. Even though I could probably go on about Charleston and how much, not Charleston, what is it, Charlottesville that's going on right now? Trump complimented Kim Jong-un ages ago, I think. I don't think he ever complimented Kim Jong-un. I know he complimented Putin, which set a lot of people off. I have myself included, but love or hate him, Putin has earned the prestige that he has. He's one of the most powerful men in the world, and he earned it. And a lot of people don't like that Trump is being all buddy, but I'm talking way too much about current events, but it's something I'm interested in. Trump has said a lot of good things about Russia, but you know what? It's not 1992. We're not at war with them. It's not the Cold War anymore. They're not our enemy. Preemptive strike! Wasn't that a chibi guy with Jean? Ah. Yeah, back to Ruby Wars. I did not spend enough time preparing for this. Again, Celtic Phoenix did a great video on the history of Remnant, and I would go search for his video. There are a lot of good points there, but pretty much. And this goes into like stuff that they can still improve on. With the different cultures, because we have 4 kingdoms and then whatever the hell menagerie is, and we got a bit of a glimpse of that. We got glimpses of Atlas, and we spent a lot of time in Vale throughout the first 3 volumes. And we're getting the Mistral now, but the whole point of the Mistral arc was more to show what it's like outside the kingdoms in Volume 4. Like, that was the point in, of the Ranger segments in Volume 4 was, to show what it's like outside the kingdoms. We're gonna get more about Mistral next volume, I think.
I hope I didn't scare you. It's a blessing given to some of us. We can be like wild beasts. Fearsome. Oh no. Only the Circle have the beast blood. We should keep moving. Still the Draugr to worry about.
Yeah, I wish this mod also had, like, armor stuff. I can wear Sean's armor. Anybody out there in the modding community, get on that. Huntress says, so what lore would be the most viable, and what would you add, take away from or to the show? Talk about history, factions, stuff like that, which, again, like, they've done a little bit of that. But it's been kind of all over the place. Kind of like I am today. God, this sword is so powerful, too. I know these are weak level enemies, but I was able to take down a pair of giants with the sword, and I'm like only at what, level 4 or 5? It was pretty ridiculous. All the gold is mine. The thing, okay. Can't wait to see Mistral. I really hope they do a better job of making it interesting than Veil. I don't think that's going to take long. It pretty much already is just from the world of Remnant. Like, the world of Remnant, Veil is... We still know nothing about, like, Veil. It's history. Like, how did... That's something that I would add. History of the Kingdoms. How did they actually begin? Because we don't know anything concrete before the Great War. We need a timeline. We need to know, like, how long these kingdoms have been around. We need to know, like, when the Faunus War was in relation to everything else. We need to know, like, when humans started interacting with Faunus. Give a time scale on, like, give a time scale for, like, how long the maidens have been in hiding. Just timeline. Give a timeline, which that's something they could easily do, but I don't think they will, because Miles Luna went on record saying that he doesn't like doing timelines because that leads to plot holes, even though that is the exact opposite of what is true. Scarlet Curl said yes, but in Mistral we should see what they talked about in Mistral's World of Remnant, the arts and the criminal underground, and the respect for nature are actually run by kings. That is kind of a ongoing joke with Ruby's dissenters, is that they call the kingdoms kingdoms even though they don't have kings. Which, you know what, it's only been 80 years since the Great War, and we know that they had kings and queens back then. So maybe it's still just a formality. Like, it hasn't been long enough for them to actually start calling themselves republics or whatever. Or maybe they do have a king or queen, and it's like in the UK where the title of king or queen is pointless, arbitrary. Doesn't mean a goddamn thing. We know that Atlas is run by the military, though, and that's a good thing. That makes Atlas different than the other kingdoms. go with heavy armor. And the Giant's one. Or the curls, or they haven't been mentioned yet. Yeah, I can. Especially if they go like the UK route with the Queen, they could easily just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm the Queen, but I pretty much mean nothing except a title." And it wouldn't be like that bad of a thing to add. But another thing that has to do with lore, you got religion, you got politics, and you got arts and literature, which we're hopefully going to get more of that with Mistral being like the center of arts in Ruby. Nothing useful here. Waste a bunch of lockpicks for nothing. Just backhanded. Just punched a rat to death. That could. Currently, curls, the Queen is a good fallback in our government. Australia is under her quote-unquote rule. Sure, the Governor General can sack our PM and temporarily replace them instead of going into government lockdown. That seems pretty interesting, actually. I don't know that much about like Australian politics. I know that down under you guys have a lot of like censorship stuff, a lot of like embargoes on like video games and stuff that are perceived as violent. And I also know that your entire country started off as a freaking prison colony. Other than that, and the stuff that everyone knows about Australia, like kangaroos, I don't know that much about it. I'm not well versed in Australian history. Jacob V11 said, I feel like they wasted the opportunity to use the school setting to give us the lore. I said that in a couple of my videos. I completely agree. Like, that's kind of the whole purpose of you having a school setting in a fantasy story. Like, I mean, you think of it like Harry Potter, Soul Eater, My Hero Academia, and even like the first like episode or two of Naruto had that school that did a lot of like really basic world building stuff. But yeah, it should not have taken us as long as it did to, at least one of the first things that should have been said in the show is what a huntsman does. Like, it's hinted that they fight monsters and help people, but other than those two facts, we learned nothing about the Huntsman until Volume 3. And considering it's like the big goal of our heroes, that's not a good thing. Like, it's not until the world of Remnant about the Huntsman that we find out that they can be hired by anyone to do anything. Which just adds some world building problems, because if the Huntsmen were founded for a very specific reason, why are they allowed to do other things? Like, My Hero Academia does this really good, but I think it's something that One Punch Man does almost exactly the same, but a little bit better. And that is the idea that this basically superhero type people, it's a job. It's just a job. Anyone can do it if they're good enough for it. I like that. The reason why One Punch Man does this the best is because One Punch Man goes by like Powerpuff Girls logic, where there's like this entire world of monsters, and all these heroes are just constantly fighting, and so when a really big monster comes, everyone's busy. My Hero Academia doesn't really have anything like that. Like, it's got the League of Villains and stuff, but they're all small timers. Like, we never really see the... Never really get the feeling that... And this goes through the manga, too. In My Hero Academia, I never felt like there was a need for this many heroes. Like there's in One Punch Man. Am I going the wrong way? I'm totally going the wrong way. I've already been through all this. Yeah, Trish said world building is in the details. Have characters walk around market, show items that with their name spoken, so we value that with a real world like scrolls, our phones, and Leanna's money. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to have a big exposition dump. That was the biggest problem with the episode of Much Needed Talk, is that it literally stopped every single thing that was going on in order to give us this creation myth, this remnant version of the creation myth. And it did it to the point where it did it in a way that it didn't matter how well the writing was for the individual scene. It was so poorly implemented that it got a lot of negative reaction, and we did a we kind of went off on it during the podcast that week. Brother Curls, you see, we learn about American history, but no one knows ours. That's because America's more important than you. Well, I mean, it's a joke, but it's also kind of true. Like we learn a lot about freaking China. We learn all about Chinese history, and this was actually more of a personal passion of mine. But I learned a lot about Brazilian history. And we also learned a lot about Mexico history. We learned a bit about Canadian history, but usually only as it relates to us. We also learn a lot about like Egyptian history, and we learn a lot of Greek history. Like, find any random American student who did well in history class, and they'll be able to tell you freaking everything about Greco-Roman society from like 3000 BC to 280. We'll be able to tell you all about that. Robert Fuller said, in My Hero Academia's difference, they explain that by saying All Might's presence alone is a deterrent. Yes, and that kind of actually, like, that thing is, My Hero Academia is not really concerned with its world building, it's concerned with its characters and the impact that they have. And Hero is just, again, like, it is just a job description. It's just something that people do, is they do hero stuff. With the exception of All Might and Deku, who form, like, the heart and soul of that series. Yeah, One Punch Man does feel a little more organized with his hero sister. Is that really because Well, again, like, One Punch Man only seems more well organized because, like, it does a lot better at showing just how big the threat is and just how much the heroes are needed. Like, you get the freaking Deep Sea King in there, and he's wrecking house. He's wrecking all these, like, A-listers, and he even wrecks Genos. And, I mean, even wrecks Genos. Genos is like the freaking serious punching bag. But he wrecks all these heroes, and like we need, and it creates the need for these more powerful heroes and all these smaller heroes as well. Carla Curl said, "We're still the better country." You know what? It's fine to be proud, to have pride in your country. I mean, that was the only reason why we even elected Trump. And she also said, "Enjoy your crappy healthcare." It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of already crappy. It's been crappy.
What's the matter? You can't stand the sight of a strong...
If you want to be completely honest, American healthcare has been kind of crappy since the 70s, under Jimmy Carter. And it's only gotten, like, progressively worse from there. Like, once the government started doing all this oversight stuff on healthcare and started actually making the rules for healthcare, it started to decline big time. Kind of sucks that the 50s and 60s American healthcare was like the best it'll ever be. Jacob V11 said, "I feel like they are capable to give us the lore in an interesting way, like, for example, the Remnant board game scene." I love that scene.
And would you raise a mug in his name? I would lead the Song of Triumph as our meet.
Yeah, I love that scene, and this is why I don't talk even though I talk crap on the world building in Ruby, it's not all negative, because that was such a clever way to do world building. And you know what? I really do think, because of that scene, that games are a very good way to do world building. Like in my fan fiction, there's a couple times where they play video games, and for them, the Grimm are like the stand-in for all their monsters. Like they don't like every single video game that has any kind of action in it has people fighting Grimm, and I did that because I think that makes the most sense.
I see you've been allowed to know some secrets. Not every. Some take to it more than others. Well, I grow old. My mind turns towards the horizon. I work living as beast. Some may prefer eternity in his hunting grounds. Yes, but you don't. And speak to your land if you want to.
So often the dialogue in this game is so like just superfluous. It's just so much fluff. Because I'm saying Australia has always had better healthcare than America. That does not surprise me. Like I said, our healthcare system hasn't even been freaking passable since the 70s. I mean, you go before the 50s and it's like freaking nuts and scary, and like freaking the stuff you find in horror movies. That was our healthcare system. Like literally entire genres, entire subgenres. Alright, who should I talk to? I'm gonna talk to the Huntress Lady.
I've heard you made.
I mean, if we're really not going to have a lot of plot progression in Volume 5, and they're just going to sit with their hands in their pants all volume, you might as well have Team Ranger look at the mission boards, take some missions, and do them, and build subplots from there to keep the audience occupied while we wait for the inevitable shit to go down that gets Team Ruby back together. Some other minor points while I head to this Grim hideout, as I'm gonna call it, because hunting monsters, or predators rather, whatever. Dust. I think they should have explained Dust a lot better. They should have explained it. If it's a naturally occurring thing, then there's no need to build any kind of like mystery or anything around it.
Walk into the city of free man. You picked a bad time to get lost, friend.
You know what? You want to fight? Ciao! And I was trying to be nice. Death bell. Stealing a horse. If Captain America can steal cars, then Sean can steal a horse. The stream keeps buffering and restarting at the exact same point when I reload the page. Might be a few minutes behind. Oh, that sucks.
Evan.
Hey, how far is this place? Oh, I'm almost there. Oh. Caleb Trick said, I think the Grim worshipping cult is quite a missed opportunity from the world of Remnant. We know people once thought they were spirits of tortured animals. Really is a missed opportunity. We might get it. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing Vale would have had. So they might be saving it for Mistral. I just hope they don't forget about it. Is this saber cat running away from me? Dang. Mud crabs here. Slaughterfish. I love that there's a thing called slaughterfish. Need to just find my way around this mountain. Wait, I had this idea with dust about its usage. And its usage could be summarized in a formula where it's like surface area of dust multiplied by how much aura you put into it equals the potency of the dust attack or dust effect. And I sent that to I actually sent that to Celtic Phoenix, and he liked it, and even said that you can use that to build on characters, where that's something Weiss is really good at, but Ruby doesn't understand, but Ruby is able to understand like weapon design, which is something Weiss has a little more trouble with, and stuff like that. I think the Grim worshipping cult is... Oh yeah. Scarlet Curl said it took you long enough to see that on my end, so probably true. I'm not like reading these in real time. I have the chat pulled up on my phone, and so I can only read it when I like look down on my phone. Yeah, Scarlet Curls, I guess that, but even then... also keep in mind that you guys are, like, as far as the gameplay goes, you guys are, like, 30 seconds behind me. It's not quite the one-to-one thing like in that one scene in Spaceballs. What's happening here is happening now. What's happening on your screen happened 30 seconds ago for me. Same thing with the audio. I could be like, yeah, I'm actually looking at the castle right now, but you guys are, yeah, right now I'm swimming in the water on the stream. If that gives you a good idea. Ah, farms around here.
This was as stupid as our feud with Clan Grey.
Anyway, thing about lore when you're a writer is that you don't have to put everything into the actual series. You just have to plan it out because you can use that to inform character dynamics and stuff. I'll give you a hint. I'll give you an example of this being done well and this being done poorly within Ruby. Blake being from outside the kingdoms, being from Menagerie, being from a place that doesn't have a council the way the other kingdoms do. And it informs her character, and it does so actually pretty well. But on the flip side of that, Ren and Pyrrha are both from Mistral. Why wasn't that used to give them some characterization earlier on? Why wasn't that like a basis of Ren, Nora, and Pyrrha's relationship? Why wasn't that like a core tenet of Team Juniper's that they were all familiar with the Mistral area? You got Ren, Nora, and Pyrrha who are all from Mistral, and then you got Sean who used to vacation there. That could have been the thing that united the team, but it wasn't. Alright. Yo, Trig, what about the Silver-Eyed Warriors? Right now, I dig them. I dig the way they're implemented. Actually, no, I take that back. People should have known.
I've heard you may actually be stronger than you look. Perhaps we can hunt together someday. Not bad, not bad. The intensity of the hunt is special, isn't it? Until next time.
I'm gonna do some. Are there any other quests I could do for the companions right now? Alright, I'm gonna do some running around. Although, Devin Holmes said, although Sword Art is trash, I don't believe it's the worst anime. If it's the worst you've seen, you're a fortunate soul. I've seen much worse. it is trash. There are parts of it I enjoyed. I'm trying to think, like, I haven't watched a lot of anime. I mean, I've watched a lot of anime, but nowhere near as much as, like,
Damn those great main
people who actually watch anime, like, all the time.
when the Empire
Like the anime YouTubers. Sword Art Online might be the worst I've watched. There might be one or two other ones that I've watched that I would probably consider worse. Akame Got Kill would be pretty low on the list. As would, now, Samurai Champloo just had a bad ending. The rest of the show is great. But Samurai Champloo was kind of disappointing because I had such a bad end. Kobe Reg said, honestly, I find it better to keep Aura just as a force field. The bad thing about Aura is that it's portrayed differently in literally every single volume. Like in Volume 1, it's a force field that just protects them from damage. Then in Volume 2, they don't portray it, like, at all. And so it leads to a lot of, like, really weird stuff. Like, the weirdest I would think is, Rice versus the Chainsaw Dude. Chainsaw Bane. She gets knocked out, tossed up in the air, and then takes a chainsaw to the back. And no blood because Aura, apparently. But if she had Aura, how did she get knocked out? Like, it just makes no sense. Then Volume 3 was much more of a health bar. Like, they actually quantified it. They're like, oh, it's got a... It's kind of like a health bar, but it's also like a defense boost. You can get one shot for actual damage, like Yang does against Adam. And it's got the little tail with the little, like, sparkle effect when your aura gets depleted. And then Volume 4, they kind of took that up a notch to where it's like every heavy blow has that same, like, sparkling effect. And it's just been very consistent. Because I remember as I watched Volume 3 finale, I thought, I wonder why Osmond thought Ruby's eyes were important. And then a few minutes later, I knew why.
Show those. You found it.
I and many other people just assumed that the silver eye things were a reference to Ruby's mother. That, like, he recognized Ruby or whatever.
I'm gonna put this back where it belongs.
But now we know that it was much more important than that, and
my sister.
it really started with the Volume 3 premiere when Ruby was like, I still don't know why he let me in early. Like, he let you in early because you cleaned house on a bunch of thugs and impressed him. That's why he let you in early, but oh, because you're trying to build a mystery there. We're looking for a mystery, and then we solve it really easily because that's what happens when you're actually looking. Like, I just watched Fight Club again the other day. And this actually segues into another thing I was wanting to talk about and wanted to mention, but, it's not really long enough to warrant a video. And that is how Fight Club has one of the best twists ever. And spoiler alert for Fight Club. I know it's like a almost 10-year-old movie, but still gotta give that spoiler warning because the spoiler is that good. But Tyler Durden is the bad guy. But he's also just saying what was on everybody's mind anyway. And that's kind of what Fight Club, both the book and the movie, did. Is that it wasn't... unlike The Matrix, which came out that same exact year, actually. It didn't pretend like it was the first person to think this. It didn't... Like, I can't remember the name of the writer for the book. But he didn't pretend like he was the first person to say what he said about consumerist culture. And the Gen X culture, more specifically. And trying to gauge my audience here. A lot of the people that watch my videos that I've talked to are around my same age. So I'm going to assume that most of you guys are like in your 20s, in your early to mid 20s. Some of you might be older, some of you might be longer or younger. But Gen X was they were the children of the baby boomers, who were in turn the children of the people who fought in World War II. And Fight Club was and the Gen X was what a lot of people consider to be a waste of a generation. And I think it's actually a line in Fight Club where Tyler Durden says, we didn't change the world like our parents, and we didn't save the world like our grandparents. Reference to the baby boomers and a reference to the golden generation of World War II. They were just occupying space. They were just marking time. And it led to a lot of stifling, a lot of stagnation, which you can see all throughout the 90s. The 90s were like a cultural dead zone. It was like an evolutionary dead end. The whole counterculture movement, which was a big middle finger to the excess culture that had defined the 80s, which was just a bloated version of the intellectual culture of the 1970s, which in turn was a perfection of the activist culture of the 60s. But Fight Club was kind of a response to all that through the mouth of someone who was feeling that. And again, like unlike The Matrix, it didn't pretend like it was the first person to think this. In fact, as it turns out, Tyler Durden is not even an external force within the within the movie. He is an internal one. He is a figment of Ed Norton's imagination. The nameless narrator character played by Ed Norton. Tyler Durden is in that movie. He is the voice in Ed Norton's head that says all the stuff that Ed Norton is thinking but too afraid to admit. And that is exactly what Fight Club was for the adults, the 20 to 30-year-olds of 1999. It was that voice that was saying what everyone was already thinking, but either didn't want to admit, or didn't care to admit, or didn't really have the driving force to admit, didn't really have the ability to admit. Alright, you can catch up with the chat. Scarlet Curl says, the music of SAO was pretty good, but Yuki Kajura has done better on other anime. Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles was my fave soundtrack by her. Not familiar with her work, but the music in SAO is one of its strong suits. And she also says, Aura has been established as more than a force field. I believe it can be channeled to add power to hits. It's how I think Ren and Fox were able to make Grim explode. I agree. And that is just something they need to explain that. They need to explain like how that works and why that works. But ran off the edge there. Maybe Greg said, I believe that Aura isn't a total protection like armor. It'll have flaws in its defenses. I think it protects everything, but I think it could be easily overwhelmed. Like, it's got that healing factor, and it's also got that health bar factor to where if it's drained, then you can get hurt, and only after it's drained can you get hurt. I'm like on the wrong side of this mountain. I'm trying to go up this mountain, but I need to go around it. Just venturing out into the wilds of Atlas. The Aura also has that, like, defensive thing to where it can only defend against blows that are so strong. Like, if a blow is stronger than what the Aura can take, then it's useless, which is what happened with Yang. Keep going around. I don't care if I'm going the long way. I'm not turning back now. For the curls, and there was once a pink shockwave from one of Nora's attacks, and her aura is pink. Yeah, I think that's her. I think that's more her semblance, though. Because when she uses her semblance, the electricity turns pink when she's charging up. People have wondered if poison could bypass aura. I think it can. I think aura doesn't protect your insides, only from the outside. Now, maybe if you had like a lot of regenerative power with your aura, like Jean seems to, then maybe you can like cleanse the poison from your body. But other than that, yeah, I'm pretty sure poison doesn't care about aura. which makes Tyrion even deadlier. But the thing is that his stinger has to get through, which requires him to either be stronger than the aura or whittle the aura down to where he can sting. Like I said, I usually associate an aura to the body of martial arts artists. They can take heavy blows all around their bodies, but places like the chin or temple will have an on their brain, causing them to be more prone to be knocked out. I'm not so sure, because the thing about those points is that they have like those points that are weak even on martial artists are like pressure points. Those are very sensitive areas that would knock people that's their kill strikes or knockout strikes easily. No, I'm back at Whiterun, right? Isn't that right? Whiterun? Went around in a big circle. Scarlet Curl said, I thought Adam's semblance allowed him to pass through aura. I don't think so. That might be the case, but I don't think that's how it works. I think he's able to absorb energy and like throw it back out. Kind of like Yang, but whereas Yang takes physical damage, Adam can like absorb, I don't know, like dust. Like maybe he can absorb like dust attacks. That would be pretty freaking cool for an ability. But that's just my thoughts. Didn't even look at his face.
Weren't expecting that, were you? You won't be able to see tomorrow.
Scarlet Curl said it was the food fight when she didn't have her semblance
For so long, I thought I'd never see another soul again.
charged up.
I was kidnapped by these bandits weeks ago. They locked me in the tower
Oh,
and missed
yeah, that was just, yeah, an aura attack. Sage does that too in Volume 3.
I'm completely lost.
He has that, like, little green pulse at his feet when he jumps up to attack the Nevermore.
Oh, thank you. But I should be fine now that you've shown me the way. But those bandits have to be stopped. They're at Mistwatch. If you can stop them, you'll be a true hero.
Bandits, huh? To be where I said, what I mean is that in certain areas of the body area is weaker. It's more susceptible to damage than others. Yeah, I mean, it could be, we don't know. Like, it could really be like a health bar. Like on a health bar on some games, if you get hit in the head, it does a lot more damage. Caleb Trick says, so semblance is based on one's personality, but it's always bugged me about Pyrrha's polarity ability. What do you think of semblance? I think semblance should be used a lot more. And I think semblance is something we should know a character's semblance before we even see their weapon, I think. It is the thing that makes every fight unique. Like quirks do in My Hero Academia, or Jutsus do in Naruto, or stands do in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. As for Kira in particular, she wanted to be a weapon. She wanted to be useful. And she wanted to be useful to the world. And part of that was being the best. And so she had a semblance that allowed her to have an unfair advantage over anyone else. Other than that, yeah, it's kind of hard to determine exactly what part of Pyrrha's semblance made her able to control metal. Maybe it was like she could only control herself. She couldn't like control her fate or whatever. She wanted to be used by other people, and that was kind of like the whole basis of her semblance being polarity. I just really like how it reflects Team Ruby. Like Team Juniper, not so much. Team Ruby is a lot better conceived on the semblance level. Like every single one of their semblances really matter to their personality and their backstory and history and everything else. I'm still not convinced that they actually had Crow's semblance planned out before Volume 4. I'm still convinced he was supposed to just turn into a crow, but they wanted a big reveal, so they changed it. I'm convinced of that. Like, I am not convinced otherwise. Robert Forsyth just made me think, from Helsing Ultimate, all I want to be is a bayonet, from Alexander Anderson. I guess. That's a good way to put it. Now, there's a lot of characters in fiction who are like really powerful in their own right, but just want to serve. Darth Vader is probably the most well known. He was never the mastermind. He was never the puppet master. He was always the servant. He was always the one who was helping. Even if he was helping even if those he was helping were the bad guys. Yeah, I just one-shotted a troll. Toby Roy said, honestly, I really don't think that semblances are capable of morphing the body. I think they very well could be. I mean, surely. if every semblance is unique in some way, even if it's arbitrarily so. There's probably a lot of freaking shape-shifting semblances out there. Like, it makes sense. I mean, you think of Ruby, she's able to burst into rose petals. That's kind of shifting her body around. Kinda.
Hello, my friend. What can I do for you on such a... My father taught me an important lesson many years ago. He said, Gwilyn, you have the whole world before you. Go out and experience it. Be whatever you want to be. So, I took his advice, and here I am. This life might not look like much to you, but I'm content. And isn't that all that matters? Have yourself
Not today.
a great day.
I'm just not passing through on your way to High Hrothgar. About to make a delivery up there myself. Mostly food supplies like dried fish and salted meats. You know, things that keep fresh for a long time. The great
Home said, Kira could have been far more interesting if she was given some flaws besides being too perfect. I would have actually cared if she had a quirk in which she was a perfectionist or schizophrenic. She kind of was a perfectionist. I mean,
it just wouldn't feel right to charge them for
Volume 2 did a lot of good work with her. Volume 3 did it so much more, which segues into something I was wanting to talk about on the stream, which is the Maidens.
Really? Here, take this bag of supplies. At the top of the steps, you'll see the offering chest. Just honestly, I'm not
The
certain.
Maidens were kind of shoehorned into Volume 3. It's one of the last things Monty came up with before he passed away. But and this is something that Dude What the Heck and I have had disagreements on. Because he hates the Maidens. He thinks they're one of the worst parts of the show. I am actually quite fond of them. For one, it really opens up the possibilities in terms of action scenes. For two, it's not really that much of an upgrade. It just allows people to use dust type attacks without actually needing to hold and maintain dust. And the other thing is that it added a lot of weight and gravitas to Pyrrha's final days that she would not have gotten otherwise. There was no way her death would be as poignant as it was if not for the Maiden subplot.
Keep an eye out for wolves if you're headed up the path to High Hrothgar.
Actually, she hasn't burst into rose petals, because if she did, she would be able to grab or hold people or things. Has she ever, has she ever grabbed anything after she burst? I'm pretty sure she reforms with all her stuff, and then that bursts along with her. Trey said it's an interesting concept, it's just poorly executed. I don't even think it's all that poor. it's actually there's a difference. There's well conceived and well executed. The maidens are actually well executed. They are terribly conceived, though. Like I said, like they were pretty much made up on the spot, shoehorned into the main plot, and then everything changed from there. Like, who knows what Volume 3 was going to end up being had Monty not had that idea right before he died. But it did a lot of good for the show. It added a lot to Pyrrha and it added a lot to Cinder. And it did so without adding too much lore-wise. If I were to change one thing about the Maidens is I would not have portrayed it like the Doomsday scenario that Osmond kind of treated it as.
Just a pilgrim. I'd prefer to leave it at that, if you don't mind.
Carla Curl says she grabbed Nora in petal form. Yeah, and Nora burst along with her. Like, that's just part of her power. W. Rick said the rose petals are more like a visual effect to indicate that her semblance is in use. Like the black outlines on Pierre's hands, the distortion effects around, like... Well, yeah, her semblance is actually just speed, but it's, I think the official name is, like, scattering speed. And yeah, the Trail of Rose Petals is her semblance tell. Much like the black lines are for Pyrrha's semblance. Let's see how much stronger the sword is than other equipment I would have at this point. First time I ever fought this guy, I got owned. 3 strikes is all it took. Yeah, first time I ever played this game, I climbed up High Hrothgar. That frost troll annihilated me. It was such a big, epic ordeal. Not with Corsair Morris at my side. I just freaking wasted that troll. Robert Fuller said, I feel like they still could have made Pyrrha's last days poignant by having her be a guardian and making that the equivalent of being a Jedi or Spider-Man. I mean, they kind of did that, but I don't know. Just something about the mythic power that the maidens have made it raised the stakes. Toby Rex said Ruby actually held Penny and used her semblance. Yeah, well, she grabbed Penny and then used her semblance, so it's actually very similar to what she did with Nora. And Caleb Trick said, I feel the maidens should have been introduced in the first volume, and for the most part they should have been fairly common knowledge. So you actually touched on something there that I want to kind of rant about. I'm going to address the other 2 parts of that sentence first, and that is that the maidens were not going to be introduced in Volume 1. Because they were not even thought up. They were not even part of the plan until Volume 3 was well into production. Now, that common knowledge part, this is one of the most infuriating things about Ruby. The whole idea that Ozpin hid religion. How do you hide religion? How do you hide something like that from millions of people? How does it go from common knowledge to myth so easily? especially since it's only been, again, like this goes back to a point that I used in defense of a lot of stuff, is that it's only been 80 years. But yeah, it's only been 80 years. Again, once again, it's only been 80 years since the Great War. There's no reason why all this stuff is hidden. And again, like, the Great War was only 10 years long, so it's only been 90 years since the Great War even started. So there's no way that this stuff should be hidden.
Show us, Dragonborn. Let us taste of your voice. Shout at us, and let us taste of your voice. Dragonborn, it is you. Welcome to High Hrothgar. I am Master Angir. I speak for the Greybeards. Now, tell me, Dragonborn, why have you come here?
I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees.
We are here to guide you in that. Whether you are the only one that has been revealed thus far. You have shown, but without training, you have already taken the first steps towards projecting your voice into a thum, a shout. Now let us see if you are willing and able to learn. When you shout, you speak in the language of dragons. Thus, your dragon blood gives you an inborn ability to learn words of power. All shouts are made up of 3 words of power. As you master each word,
Toby Reg said, you watched Celtic Phoenix, didn't you? Yes, I mentioned that earlier. I mentioned that towards the beginning of the stream, that I've done more than just watch his videos. I've actually conversed with him within comment sections. Like, if you go to my What If Ruby Volume 1 was good, he actually watched it and commented on it. We had a bit of a discussion there. Robert Fuller said, that is something else about the maidens that bugs me, is that Osmond wanted a guardian to be a symbol of hope, but wants a maiden who they'll hide from the world. So, those of you who know who I am from, like, before I was on YouTube, and even before I was on fanfiction, back when I was just someone who would post on Team Theory, back when Team Theory was a thing, one theory I had during Volume 3 is that Pyrrha was always just going to be a temporary guardian because she was the strongest. Like, she proved herself to be stronger than most, like, upperclassmen at Beacon. And she proved that through the,
well done. Again.
I thought that Ruby was always going to be the guardian. And that what Osmond, like, at the end of episode 5, when Osmond's like, we need to find our guardian, like, she's ready. He said, most importantly, she's ready. Which is why I don't think it was Ruby at that time. It was like, Pyrrha was just pretty much a stand-in until Ruby was actually ready to be the guardian. Because Pyrrha was ready, physically anyway. She just wasn't mentally ready. Which is what did her in. But yeah, those were my thoughts at the end of episode 5 of Volume 3. Like, before we ever got the maidens. Trey said Ruby has never been one for consistent and concise storytelling. Yes, and there are 3 reasons for that. Monty Oum, Miles Luna, Carrie Shawcross. Monty Oum was a great animator, but a terrible writer. He was not a he wasn't just a terrible writer. He wasn't a writer. Whether it's Ruby or Dead Fantasy or even the stuff he did with Red vs. Blue, he was not a good writer. Which is why when he really wanted to put Ruby together and when he really wanted to... what was I thinking? I completely forgot where I was at on my train of thought. Oh, when Monty wanted to put together the writing staff for Ruby, he knew he couldn't do it on his own. Because it would just be like Dead Fantasy all over again. It would just be pointless, superfluous action with absolutely no character or drama. Which is why I got Miles Luna, who had just become the head of story at Rooster Teeth, and Carrie Shawcross. Carrie Shawcross is probably the best of the three in terms of writing, but he's a comedy writer. He's better at stuff like Ruby Chibi or Camp Camp.
Your turn. Stand next.
Let me make sure that I have the right shout.
Me, Master Bori will open the gate. Use your whirlwind sprint to pass through before it closes.
I just hit that dude on the head. Then, yeah, Miles' biggest weakness is that he can't remember simple things, like who said what.
Your quick mastery of a new theme is astonishing. I'd heard the story. You are now ready for your...
Toby Ray said Miles had bad memory and doesn't take notes or reread scripts. Carrie isn't really only good for jokes.
Remain true to the voice.
I literally just said that as I was looking down. That Miles is not good at, does not have a good memory. And he said it. He admits it. And Carrie, I mean, you look at his track record, the best stuff he's written is the comedy stuff. Ruby Chibi and Camp Camp. And, like, the bits of Ruby, like the funny, the character stuff, the, like, really small slice of life stuff that I love so much from Ruby. And from stories in general. I said this in a Facebook post, but Winnie the Pooh had a way bigger impact on how I write than I could have ever guessed as a kid. Game Holmes, I would enjoy some interaction between Raven and Yang in the future of the series. They're gonna interact. That's inevitable. It's gonna happen. It's only a matter of time. And Robert Fuller, my main point is that she couldn't be a maiden and a guardian since they wanted the guardian to be a public figure and the maidens needed to be a secret. I don't think it's necessarily mutually exclusive. Because Pyrrha was already a very public figure. And had the tournament not gone the way it did, she could have become, like, a very, very famous, like, almost celebrity. And it's actually kind of something to do with Prem in my fan fiction, where she's, like, a celebrity and the Guardian, and just this very beloved public figure. And that could have been Pyrrha, but then her power, the maiden powers, could have been kept secret. Which kind of sounds dumb and counterintuitive, like you said, but, I mean, it wouldn't be the dumbest thing people have done on that show. Like Glinda saying that she can't see how Ren and Nora can get along, even though she surely got their files right in front of her. Jordan, Joel, or Jeff would have been better for writing long narrative. I'm gonna guess by those names you mean Jordan Swears, Joel Hyman, and Jeff Ramsey? I don't know, Jeff's not a writer either. If you mean Jeff Ramsey. You might mean some other Jeff that I'm not familiar with. Jeff Ramsey's funny, and he is oftentimes the best, and just as oftentimes the only tolerable part of Rooster Teeth Productions, but a lot of his best stuff is improv. A lot of his best stuff comes from Achievement Hunter and stuff like that. As for Joel, I never liked Joel. I to be perfectly honest, I never really cared for Joel Hyman or Joel Heyman. Jordan Swears is awesome though. I'm not sure about how good of a writer he is, because the only thing he's written, I think, is Camp, and he's just one of 3 writers on that show, because he's also got Miles and Carrie, which, granted, that's almost exactly the same writing staff as Ruby. It really shows how good Jordan probably is, but again, Camp does a lot better at playing to the writer's strengths than Ruby does, because the type of story Ruby is right in the wheelhouse of what all their writers' weaknesses are. Whereas Camp plays into every single one of their strengths. What the hell? This is the same dragon I killed earlier.
Chat with an old woman, My friend Maven and I. Have you met Maven in Riften? We know our place in this world. Know the place.
Why is this dragon skeleton here? Huh. That was just weird.
There's a nip in the air. Cold won't be good for my crops. Never is.
And where am I going? That's heading back to Whiterun, but I guess not. How long have I been going? Been going for almost 2 hours. Or Fuller, his skeleton followed you home. I killed him like 4 hours ago. I killed him like an hour before I started streaming. Or an hour of gameplay before I started streaming. I wanted to get to a certain point where I was doing stuff for the companions before I started streaming. Like I said, this is kind of a new character. My main is an Argonian who dual-wields Falmer axes. Doesn't take any lip from no man. But those guys are hunting. Trick said, I feel a Jean Arc with a famous kind of family background could be kind of world building and character developing. We don't know how famous Jean's family is. Apparently they're not that famous, or maybe they were and kind of fallen out of the limelight in the last since the Great War. Because obviously they're low class enough for Weiss to not care. And since Ruby's such a fangirl for a Huntsman, I don't think any of them are like contemporary Huntsmen. Otherwise, Ruby might have heard of them. You're wolves. I'm going to show you some of the other weapons I have. I don't have all the Ruby weapons that you can get. I only have 3 of them. There's like 7 of them, I think. Crescent Rose. I also got Mirror Canister. You can get Gamble's Shroud. You can get Neptune's Trident. And you can get Magenhild. I think that's it. This Crescent Rose visually isn't all glitchy like Jean's sword. Should I go fight a dragon? Should I go to the altar? Fight a dragon first. Dragon will be taking me upwards. Upwards and over. Come down here and fight me! Almost killed it that time. Serves that dragon right. Killer Tree said, I feel Jean Arc with a famous kind of... Okay, I regret that. To be read, said, he has the history to explain the Great War through his grandfather. Yeah, I mean, if anything involving the Great War does come up, Jean could be a good way to explain it, because he probably grew up with a lot more stories from the Great War than anyone else did. Save for maybe Ruby. I don't think Ruby was so much interested in history as much as she was with fairy tales. Which is a good way to segue into another little thing I want to talk about in the stream, which is literature, fairy tales, folklore, legends. We've gotten quite a bit of hints about that kind of stuff throughout Ruby, in both the bookstore scene and when Pyrrha was naming off stories. I kind of want to hear them. I kind of want to hear them kind of play into... Because here's the thing about fictional stories within stories. You don't have to have them mean something for the plot. You just have to have them mean something for the character. So, one way I'd have this, Ruby gets asked, what's your favorite fairy tale story? And she gives an answer. And she gives an answer of a story that we, the audience, have not yet heard. That guy said, oh, just got here. Is that a Ruby mod? It's a Ruby weapon mod. This mod allows you to craft a handful of weapons from Ruby. I've got Corsia Moore. I got Crescent Rose out now, but I also have... I also have Myrtanaster, and I have Corsia Moors. And I actually upgraded Corsia Moors. Corsia Moors. That's been the weapon I've used mostly, but it's got Myrtanaster. Hey look, I'm wise, I'm rich, I know facts. I like when you do the charge up attack with Myrtanaster, it does a stab instead of like a... Yeah, like that. Caleb Tree said the Argentware ideas and concepts you wrote in Ruby On would be a great addition. Yes, I agree. It doesn't make any sense for the Silver-Eyed Warriors to maintain a secret. Like, seriously, you're worried? You're hiding all this stuff because you're worried people will panic about the Grimm. Then why not tell them that there is literally an entire race of people who have a special ability that turns Grimm into stone? Why wouldn't that be public knowledge? Why wouldn't these people be, like, protected and treated like celebrities and be kings and queens and freaking rulers and stuff like that? Why wouldn't they run the place? I put a lot of weight on a character called Abraham, who is, within Ruby On, the first hunter and the strongest man to ever live. And he deserves it because not only is he the strongest man to ever live, but he was also the first of the Argentware, the first of the Silver-Eyed Warriors, and he was the first hunter. He's the one who he was the first one to show that people can fight and win against the Grimm. Caleb Trigg added, I also feel that there would be a few more Silver-Eyed Warriors. I believe that most because of what Hazel said in Volume 4, Episode 1. Yes. It's not outside the realm of possibility for there to be more Silver-Eyed Warriors. I built an entire, like, subplot about... I built up an entire character arc where Ruby was coming to grips that she's the last of the Silver-Eyed Warriors, only for her to find out that she's not the last of the Silver-Eyed Warriors, and that the actual other last of the Silver-Eyed Warriors is a villain who wants to kill her. You know, Levi was the best goddamn idea I've ever had. Ustengrav.
You picked a bad time to get lost, friend.
I beg to differ. Cold never bothered me anyway. Are there more people? Toby Rex says, so what about villains? We don't know enough about the villains. Like, it will be a future video where I take an honest look at the villains, but that's not going to happen for a long time. That's not going to happen until at least after Volume 5. We just don't know what their end goal is. What do they hope to accomplish?
These thralls of yours are slower than Argonians in a blizzard.
Power is a means to an end, not an end in itself. Get my, we're seeing Moors back out. I remember this correctly. This dungeon is a bit confusing. Like, the Silver-Eyed Warriors could have dwindled in numbers. Yes, and I do think that that's kind of where they're going with it, where, either since the Great War or even before the Great War, Salem and her cronies have been systematically executing the Silver-Eyed Warriors. Because, I mean, you take it from Salem's perspective, like, I already gave you, like, kind of the culture of Remnant's perspective on how they would react to Silver-Eyed Warriors and how much they would probably worship them. But if Salem wants to destroy humanity, then numero uno on her frickin' hit list would have to be the Silver-Eyed Warriors. You would need to get rid of them first. And it almost makes me wish that Tyrion would have succeeded in kidnapping Ruby at the end of the volume. Like, I thought that was gonna happen. I thought that Tyrion was gonna come in during the Nuclavi fight, or Hazel or Watts was gonna come in during the Nuclavi fight, and Ruby was gonna, like, use her Silver-Eye powers again to finish off the Nuclavi, get knocked out, and then the villain was gonna come in and grab her and take her off, and that was gonna be like how Volume 4 ended. Interesting, I agree, but there's no way that Ruby is the last and only one. It could be. I mean, I maybe it's because this is what I did, but I would really like it for them to think that Ruby is the last one, and then find out that she's not. That there is another, and maybe have that other be the bad guy. How do I get out of here? Because I feel like I'm going around in circles, and I'm going nuts. Thank you, Druggers, for basically saying that I have not been here yet. Appreciate it. Devin Holmes said, does anyone find it somewhat odd that no one uses Ren's semblance? He has the most important semblance in the world. Yeah, I kind of find Ren's semblance oddly underused. Like, you would think you would use it, oh, I don't know, when Bale was getting attacked by Grim? I'm just glad that nobody seemed like shocked about his semblance in the show. Obviously, like we were, but I'm glad that everybody seemed to, like Jean, Nora, and more importantly Ruby, seemed to know his semblance. Leading up to that. It makes it a little more forgivable. Toby Rex says Salem equals Zetsu. I think if Salem equals a Naruto character, it'd be more like Toby or Pain. Zetsu was just kind of this strange creature that gave the bad guys information. Like, he was kind of unassuming, kind of like very innocuous. He was very innocuous. Nobody expected him to be as important as he ended up being. She could have been manipulating events through history. Yeah, I believe she was. DeAndre Kidd said, probably already answered this, but could other Silverhand warriors? Yes, we were actually just talking about that. About the possibility of other Silverhand warriors. But anyway, the whole literature thing in Ruby. I didn't get to finish my thought on that. And that's, yeah, have Ruby have a favorite story and have her tell it and say, like, why it's her favorite. It would add a lot to her character. Especially if it's, like... Especially if it's during the... like, reunion of Ruby and Yang. Like, Ruby reminds Yang why they're doing this, and, like, recaps, and Ruby recaps her favorite story that Yang used to read to her. Oh god, I remember this. It's so frustrating with mouse and keyboard. Are you guys ready to watch me fail this like 50 freaking times? There are the right shouts. And you gotta hit it like dead on. Oh, this is gonna take a while. Get the timing right on this. Younger kid said, I wonder if Team Stark had a team they competed with, like, for example, Ruby vs. Juniper. It could have. Caleb Craig, fairy tale stories are a very core aspect of Ruby. Unfortunately, it is undervalued as well. Like how the Tale of Two Gods, that should have been common knowledge. Yes. And a lot of people actually, like, theorize that, the Tale of Two Gods is the same exact story as, the Tale of Two Brothers that Pyrrha mentions. Can I not whirlwind sprint through that? I told you, I hate doing stuff like this on mouse and keyboard. This is embarrassing. Rex said, Pyrrha mentioned it as one of the children's stories she grew up with. Yeah, she said the Tale of the Two Brothers. And that's kind of the common theory that Tale of Two Brothers is the same exact thing as the Tale of Two Gods. I had to freaking move my hand. Bill Holmes said, pardon me, sir, but have you seen the popular fan art of Ruby and Weiss's child? Not to be judgmental, but how is that even possible? Because all things are possible through the power of fan fiction. But yeah, my Rose and Lee Belladonna are they're cute. That's about all I can say in defense of them though. Everything else about them kind of is terrible. And I hit spacebar bar instead of the sprint key. Okay, see, that time I was freaking sprinting. I should have at least gotten through the first two. Is there an easier way to do this, or are you guys just laughing at me? See, it's stopping me before I even get through the door. Before I even hit the door. Yeah, I'm convinced that you guys are laughing at me, and I hope you're enjoying yourselves. I'm getting kind of frustrated with this part again. I get frustrated with this part every time. And I do like... I'm just doing what I did to beat it the first time, and... It's like really finicky. It like takes... There we go, see? And it stopped me as I got through the first door. And I should have gotten through the second door as well. Toby Ray says it's actually possible IRL too. Well, in theory anyway. Not really. There we go, see? Did the exact same thing, except that time it actually let me through the door. It says stopping me before it even started shutting. Killtree said, does the White Fang need any lore adjustments? Just a timeline. Just an explanation of how long they've been a thing. I think that's all they really need. The White Fang have actually been well made for what it's worth, for what they are. And Toby Ray said, do you have the second shout? No, I do not. I'm still like really early in the game. Like earlier in the stream I just now talked to the Greybeards. Like I've only slayed like 3 dragons so far. Yeah, aren't I supposed to grab something from this? Read mysterious note. Yeah, I haven't even ran into the blades or whatever they're called yet. I have like no memory of this game. Been too long. Or not long enough. So I think that's really gonna cover Ruby lore at this point. I've done lots of videos on it. I have my, was it like 4 World of Remnant reviews, plus the podcast that Dude What the Heck and I did on it. Plus my What If Ruby Volume 1 was good. And if you're wondering, I know someone in the comment section of that video was wondering. I'm gonna do one every year. I'm gonna do What If Ruby was better, or what if it was good, every year. Last year, or this year, was Volume 1. Next year will be Volume 2. We've been streaming for about 2.5 hours. I'm gonna just kind of open up the Q&A stuff. Ask me anything you guys want. Be about anything. I'm gonna talk about some other stuff that's been on my mind. Like the Shadow. And oh boy. The Shadow. The Shadow's one of my he's quickly becoming one of my favorite characters ever. He's a pulp icon, radio show character from the 30s and 40s. And he's had quite a history with comic books too. Well, very, very recently, like a few days ago. Dynamite Comics, who are mostly known for Red Sonja, I think, released the first issue in a new run of Shadow Comics. And it's bad. It's really, really bad. It's the worst thing the Shadow has ever done. Granted, I haven't seen everything the Shadow's ever done. I've only read like 2 or 3 of the pulps, and I've read and I've listened to several dozen, probably like 100 of the radio dramas by now. So that's where I mostly know him from, and I've also seen the movies, like the 1994 one with Alec Baldwin. But pretty much what Dynamite Comics did is they took the original objectivist superhero and made him into an SJW, pretty much. Or, I don't even think they did that so much. They made him the butt of the SJW's jokes. Like in this most recent comics, there's parts where, this freaking hipster-looking nurse, she IDs him as the Shadow. He starts off in the hospital all burnt up and stuff. And she IDs him based on his, and I quote, old man wiener. And she calls him like, oh, you're a monster! Like, no, she's the Shadow. I'm gonna fast travel. Screw this. Screw this mountain climbing bullcrap. Where am I going? And there's another part of this comic where he's like lecturing school shooters about their white privilege, and that's just the Shadow would never first of all, the Shadow would never lecture a criminal of any kind. He's objectivist. He is black and white. He is this unrelenting force of what he calls justice. And that's what separates him from similar heroes like the Punisher. God, and it. Speaking of that, like
I'm the innkeeper. It's my business to keep track of strangers.
it's so weird that right now there's 2 comic books with the Shadow in it going on. You got the stuff from Dynamite Comics that just came out, and then you got the Batman vs. Shadow comic from DC coming out right now. And the Shadowverse Batman comic has been freaking phenomenal.
We don't get a lot of travelers here in Riverwood. Attic room, eh? Well, we don't have an attic room, but you can have the one on the left. Make yourself at home. So you're the Dragonborn I've been hearing so. I think you're looking for this. We need to talk.
Toby Wright said the Shadow question mark. Yes, the Shadow is definitely a fascinating character in origin. He started off as a radio personality. Back when radio dramas were all on the rage in the early 30s. Actually, I think he might have even started in the late 20s at this point. But he was originally created to sell these detective comics and detective magazines that have all these like pulp adventure stories in them. Well, he ended up being more popular than the comics and magazines and radio dramas he was selling. So the studio was like, "Hey." No, it was actually the audience that was like, hey, what's the Shadow's story? What's he do? Because he was just a disembodied voice that would tell the stories. He would be the narrator. And so this company hired a guy named Walter B. Gibson to give the Shadow a definitive story. And Walter B. Gibson did. Twice a month he would come out with an entire like novel. A pulp novel, which they're pretty short. About the Shadow and his adventures, and he would do that twice a month, and he did that for 20 years. There's something like 328 Shadow pulps, and over 200 of them were written by Walter B. Gibson. The rest were written by other people that they filled in to give Walter B. Gibson a break.
Surprised? I guess I'm getting pretty good at my harmless innkeeper act. Good. The whole point of being in hiding is to appear to be someone you're not. I didn't go to all this trouble on a whim. I needed to make sure it wasn't a Thalmor trap. I am not your enemy. I already gave you the horn. I'm actually trying to help you. I just need you to hear me out. Like I said in my note, I've heard that you might be Dragonborn. I'm part of a group that's been looking for you. Well, someone like you, for a very long time. If you really are Dragonborn, that is. Before I tell you any more, I need to make sure I can trust you. If you don't trust me, you were a fool to walk in here in the first place. I knew the Greybeards would send you there if they thought you were Dragonborn. They're nothing predictable. When you showed up here, I knew
the Batman, or the Shadow rather, was an inspiration for the Batman. And if you've ever seen the animated series, Batman the Animated Series episode called Beware of Grey Ghost, the Grey Ghost was stand-in for the Shadow. Right down to the title card for that episode with the Grey Ghost was taken almost exactly from Shadow Cult. And some of the Shadow's bigger fans have even claimed that Batman is a ripoff. And yeah, early Batman was also like the first Batman comic was almost a word-for-word plagiarism of the first Shadow pulp, which I believe was called The Shadow Strikes, or no, The Living Shadow, which came out almost 10 years earlier. Killed Trissa Proto-Bat, I also remember that episode.
Let you walk out of here knowing what you know. I'm part, if you really are Dragonborn, that is. Before I tell you any more, yes, but that isn't important right now. We remember your, can you do it? Good, and you'll have a chance to prove it to me soon enough. I shouldn't let you walk out of here knowing what you know. But I guess even my paranoia has its limits. You know where to find me when you change because you will.
Yeah, Batman didn't really come into his own until way later, like Batman really came into his own when Robin was introduced in, like, 1941. And the Joker came in around that same time. And that's really the one thing that Batman still has on the Shadow, is that the Batman has way better villains.
I'm part of a group that's been looking for you. Well, someone like you.
And that's why a lot of fans of the Shadow still really like Batman. Because Batman is really just the spiritual successor to the Shadow. That's made a bit more family-friendly with better villains. I'm not doing Delphine. I thought I was doing Delphine. But yeah, Killer Tree said, but yeah, pulp heroes are an intriguing concept. They're no different than comic book heroes, really.
That's been looking for you. Well, someone like dragons aren't just they weren't gone. Now something's happening to bring them back to life. A few years ago, and I think we're going to go there. And you're going to kill that dragon. If we say Kynes Grove, there's an ancient dragon bear. I need to get into my traveling gear. Give me a minute and I'll be ready.
Yeah, that's why pulp heroes like the Shadow and Elric and Melniboné translate very well to comic books. Because they're made with kind of the same intent in mind. They're just not as visually descriptive, whereas comics are... A lot of what makes a comic good is the art. Which that's another thing in the most recent Shadow comic, and really every comic the last 2 decades. The art is terrible. It is some, like, low-grade BS. Trick said the Phantom. Yes, that is another pulp icon from in very much the same vein as the Shadow, but the Shadow is like much more gun-toting, violent. He did not care what crime you committed. If he deemed you worthy of death, he was gonna blow your head off. And there's no reasoning with him. And what separates him from, another thing that separates him from Batman is his agents. Anytime he would save someone, he'd be like, now your life belongs to me. And they'd work for him, and they'd be his agents. So by the time you get to Crime Insured, which is one of only 2 Shadow Pulps that I actually own. I own Crime Insured and I own the Golden Vulture. And they're in this like little dual pack thing. But yeah, whereas the Phantom was much more like swashbuckling. He was much more in the vein of Zorro. Who's another kind of like pulp icon. Or Scarlet Pippernickel. Not Scarlet Pimpernel. Scarlet Pippernickel is the Looney Tunes version. Which I actually made a video about all that, and it's actually my most recent video. Yeah, it's only got like 40 views right now, which, yeah. It's called Secret of Secret Identities, and it's actually got the shadow in, the video image, or the eye catcher, whatever. Cute little bunny. Killer Trig asked, do you know of Robert Kirkman? The name sounds familiar. Is he a writer or another hero? Another hero from that era is Doc Savage. And Doc Savage's writer, Lester Dent, actually wrote at least one Shadow Pulp, and it's the Golden Vulture, the other one I have. Which is very well known, from what I gather. I just started it. Watch this, I'm going to drop these giants. Kidtrick said I saw a great discussion piece. Thank you. Kidtrick, writer, wrote Walking Dead. I'm not big on Walking Dead. I never read the comic. When it came out, Walking Dead started in, what, 2010? And I think the comic started in, like, 2009. Yeah. By that point, I was so sick of zombies. And I still am. Like, zombies have not given me enough of a break for me to not be just put off by them. I am so absolutely sick of them. Like, I get the appeal, but the appeal is just so, like, minimal anyway, and I just died. First time I've died on this game. On this playthrough, anyway.
Wait, so
See if that's any more embarrassing for me. Yep. I just watched myself die on the stream.
Is this way. We can travel together or split up and meet there. Your choice.
Ragnar, nobody's gonna believe that your dog is a frostbite spider. And if they do, they'll kill him. That's not much of a prank.
If my analysis is correct, the dragon buried near Kynes Grove will be the next to come back to life. Let's get going.
I think after I've been going for almost 3 hours, I think after I kill this dragon, I'm gonna call it a night. Another thing I wanted to discuss is kind of the future of my channel. Right now, I'm kind of at a transition period in my life. I am searching for my own place, finally. And so a lot of my production stuff is going to slow down. Even my writing has slowed down. Like, after I stopped, after Ruby on Generations ended, I started writing a short story called Roads. And it's supposed to be 7 chapters long. I've gotten like 4.5 chapters. I've gotten like 5.5 chapters done. That's how long it's taken me to really do anything. Granted, I'm putting a lot more time and effort into this story. But I'm gonna try finishing it this weekend, or at least sometime this week. But I also got classes starting up here in the next few weeks. That eclipse that's going on, that's happening, St. Louis, where I live, is right in the big dead center of it. Like, we are getting the full brunt of the eclipse, and we're actually having an eclipse party. So that's taking more time out of my usual day. For that reason, my YouTube stuff for the next couple months is going to focus exclusively on Ruby stuff. My other stuff outside of Ruby just has not gotten enough views or support to warrant me putting that kind of time and effort into making those videos at this point. Which is kind of why I wanted to talk about Fight Club earlier in the stream, because I almost wanted that to be the next MIS, but I ended up covering everything. I think I covered everything. The basis was that Tyler Durden was the voice inside Edward Norton's head, telling him what he was afraid to admit. And I talked about the Shadow comic, which is something I wanted to talk about. Because, my goodness. The worst part is that Dynamite did it on purpose just to frickin'... They pretty much ruined the character and made the worst Shadow story on purpose. Just to do a lot of political grandstanding that nobody wanted. Yeah, I'm on a Facebook group for the Shadow. Anyway, back to The Walking Dead, real quick.
Hold it. This here's a toll road, see? You're gonna have to hand over, say, 200... Huh! Tough... Now let's...
Congratulations, you're one of the few people to take more than one hit from my sword. Okay. All the way down there. Thought he was up top. Ugh. That's so satisfying. It doesn't go that far. That'd be rad if it did. Yeah, I did, and I said this towards the beginning of the stream. I have the audio recorded for my next Ruby video. And it's gonna be a fun one. I'm gonna try having that out in the next week or so. But again, these things take time. Especially when you're house hunting. On top of everything else. Nah, I'm not gonna kill it. Man, I haven't really talked anything about this game. Not that I need to, this is one of the most famous and successful games of all time. Yeah. I will say this about Skyrim, though. I also have Daggerfall. And this is a completely different game than Daggerfall. Like, Daggerfall is freaking hard. It's frustratingly hard. I'd play it on stream, but I ain't about to freaking do that to myself. Swear to God, if I have to start all over. God damn it. Anyway, I can fast travel. Can't I take, like, a carriage? Or something? Can I take, like, a horse and... Can I pay for, like, a horse and carriage to take me places?
Need a ride? I can take you to any of the hold capitals. Where do you want to go? Mm-hmm.
Go to Windhelm.
My carriage is the safest way to travel. Where do you want to go? Climb and back, and we'll be off. Good afternoon. Ever been to Windhelm? Oldest city in Skyrim by some accounts. They say the big old palace there was built by...
Guess I deserve this for showing off with my new with my ruby weapons. It's just kind of frustrating. Taking time out of my day to entertain you guys. Granted, I watch Game Grumps, so I'm entertained by people who play games badly. I just don't like to be the guy who plays the games badly.
No, you don't want to go up there. A dragon, it's attacking. It flew over the I don't know what it's doing up there, but I'm not waiting around to find out.
Not gonna do anything because I'm gonna kill it. Yeah, Daggerfall, like, as big and complex as this game seems, Daggerfall is so much more. Like, Daggerfall makes this game look like Call of Duty in comparison. As far as, like, how much there's, like, the sheer volume of stuff you can do. The stuff you can, like, different stuff you can do. Different things you can be, different ways you can customize, different abilities and stuff like that. Classes and such. Halloween.
Let's watch and wait. This is worse than I thought.
You do not even know our tongue, do you? Such arrogance to dare take for yourself the name of Nova. Salukanir, Kridar, Zur.
I'm going to check that out.
Dun 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 dun. I'll tell you what's happening, I'm eating this thing's soul. And we've been going for exactly 3 hours now. So, I'm gonna cut the stream here in a few minutes. Last call for questions. Well, thank you all for joining me. Thank you for the questions and discussion. It wasn't as in-depth as I was hoping it would be. But, I just decided, like, last night that I had a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about today. That I didn't want to put the time and effort into making it into videos. Especially since I don't have the time to even do the stuff I already have in production. So, yeah, keep an eye on my channel. Like, comment, subscribe. Watch all my other stuff, because the more you watch and really the more you comment on my stuff, the more I'm inclined to do more of it. Like that's really why I do the things I do, and kind of why like my fanfiction took off was because of the support I got for it. Anyway, so yeah, everyone have a good night.